Last week, we witnessed the anger that the disciples harbored as Jesus slept during a storm they felt endangered their lives. And how Jesus, when confronted, did not rebuke them, but he rebuked the storm, turning their anger into amazement. This is not to say they were at peace with the place they were headed. The last time Jesus crossed over the Sea of Galilee to the other side, they were met by a madman. A man whose strength was so great, he was able to break the chains that bound him in isolation from those he lived with. In healing this man, Jesus sends the evil spirits that controlled him into a herd of pigs that then ran down the hillside and drowned in the sea. Obviously, the owners of those pigs were not very happy, and they rallied the townspeople to drive Jesus and the disciples away. Remembering this, the calming of the sea did not calm the disciples' minds. They were Jews entering into Gentile land. Remember, Jews did not raise pigs because they felt pigs were unclean. And on top of this, they had riled the anger of those they had encountered before. What kind of reception were they to receive from people who had rejected them once before? I think we all know the fears they faced. Rejection is hard enough, but rejection shrouded in anger, well, that can be a little overwhelming at times. I remember a few years ago, I commented on something I had read that a friend posted on Facebook, and I was immediately attacked by people I didn't even know for voicing my opinion, for saying what I thought about what they had said. Maybe some of you have received similar experiences, be it on social media, in the workplace, within family, hey, maybe even here at church. Needless to say, such an attack has made me cautious about sharing my own opinion, at least on Facebook. Well, let's face it, on Facebook, you put your words down there and they can't tell what you're saying. You can share an opinion with someone in a discussion back and forth and read the body language, understand what's going on. And I just choose not to do it so much on Facebook anymore. Not just to avoid condemnation, but because as a priest, such conflict can be used to drive a wedge between us, between our relationships with God and one another. As their boat approaches the shore, they see this great crowd, and I can imagine the anxiousness about the reception they were to encounter took their attitudes and their fears and made them rise sharply. And looking over at Jesus, I bet they saw someone who was unworried about what was about to happen, just as he was unworried about the storm they faced. And maybe they wondered, can he protect us on land as he did on sea? And the answer comes very quickly as the crowd approaches. This time, instead of being accosted by angry people, they find themselves surrounded by people who just want to get close to Jesus. Reading this, I was reminded of my experience at Church of the Nativity and Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where people were pushing and shoving to be the next one to get close to the place where Jesus was born or where he had died. The only thing that calmed that crowd was the presence of a priest who would occasionally walk amongst them. I think this is true of Jairus, a leader in the local synagogue who seemingly walks through the crowded chaos to meet Jesus on the shore. Let me stop here for just a moment. A synagogue in the middle of Gentile territory? How is this possible? We're not told. What we learn in this story is that in the land that was believed to be abandoned by God, God's loving presence is made known in their midst. This shouldn't surprise us. God often shows up where we least expect to find God, and often arriving ahead of us. Something our youth mission teams have learned over the years. Maybe that's something we should remember too. Our judgments of who is right or wrong, who is in or not, who or where God will go or will not, are often flawed when we are not looking through the lens of God's love. But back to the story. So instead of an angry crowd, the disciples are amazed to find one clamoring to get close to Jesus, one desperate to receive the blessings he is there to offer. Not only Jews, but Gentiles too. Now, we're not told for certain that this is a mixed crowd, but knowing the encounter Jesus had the last time he had landed on this part of the shore, and the notoriety he was gaining on the western side of the Sea of Galilee, it is safe to say that not everyone on the beach that day was of the Jewish faith. In fact, several commentaries believe that the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years, the one who fought her way through the crowd to just reach and touch the cloak of Jesus in hopes of healing, was not a Jew. And why Jesus was so sharp in his demand to know who had touched him. But hearing her story, he did not rebuke her for her assertiveness. Instead, he had compassion. He healed her ailment and even called her a daughter in faith. Of course, not everyone in the crowd was there to be healed. I'm sure there were many there that were just interested in seeing what this guy who ran pigs into the sea last time is going to do this time. And we all know this because when Jesus tells Jairus that his daughter is just asleep, after being told by members of the household of Jairus that his daughter was dead, people laughed at Jesus. Seeing their disbelief, it sure would have been easy for him to just turn around, head back to the boat, and cross back to Capernaum. And I suspect the disciples, like some of us, might have considered doing just that. See, it's a lot easier to steer clear of ridicule or discontent than it is to do what needs to be done, or to say what needs to be said. When faced with such a decision, the litmus test I believe we must use is the one Jesus used. Does the good we do offer, does it outweigh the pain we encounter or the pain we inflict? Jesus knew that healing this girl and demonstrating the power and goodness God's love possessed outweighed any slander that he would receive from those who did not believe. And those who believed and felt as approaching someone unclean, the dead girl, was breaking Jewish tradition, and he didn't care. Now, traditions are important. Our worship is filled with acts of tradition. But when traditions keep us from doing the good we are called to do, and that is sharing the good news of Jesus Christ, we must decide between the good that we do the traditions we keep. Which is more important? If traditions or words that we use to respond to another's opinion or actions bring us into closer relationship with one another, then they are worth keeping. They are worth using. But if they drive a wedge between us, then maybe their use should be avoided. Doing the good we are called to do sometimes requires us to have faith. Faith that enables us to go among those who may not receive us very warmly, who may in fact disagree with us sharply, be it in a foreign land or in our midst, yet who need to know the goodness and power of God's love. This doesn't mean we go around forcibly converting people to believe what we believe, to think what we think, to agree that what we say is right is. Nor should we be rebuking them for their disbelief. But like Jesus, we humbly bear witness to the love we know in our lives. And we let God change their hearts. In doing this, we might just find our hearts are changed also. Seeing that where and in whom we did not think God could be known, God is already present. It is God's presence that aids us in the good we do as witnesses to God's love in our lives, and helps others to know the difference God's love and grace can make in their lives too. Amen.